Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's impressive that so many people are here on the last session of the last day, so I guess this is a topic of some interest. My name is Hank Schultz. I'm the senior editor of Supply Side Supplement Journal. I'll be the moderator for today's panel on Ozempic and its effects on the dietary supplement industry. Let me introduce our panel. We have Susan Hewlings from Radical Science, Jennifer Cooper, LPS Health Science, and David Despain from Nestle. So all of these people have something I think very, very cogent to say about this topic. We don't have here the capability to submit questions via a platform as we do in the education sessions. I will be taking, actually I don't have a handheld mic, so that's a shame. Maybe at the end we can get a handheld mic at the end to take some questions from the audience, because I know there will be some, so we will have that capability. We can set up with a handheld mic when it's time for the Q&A. But to start off with, I will be directing a few questions to our panel here. And so to begin with, let's talk a little bit about the trends. Anybody can jump in here. I'm sure you all have this data. What are the trends in usage? How has this increased? How many people are using Ozempic, and how much are they spending in a month to use this product?
Well, we were just talking about that backstage. There's some, people in the audience may know this better, because there's some varying data about how exactly what people are spending. I think, Jennifer, what were you saying?
So I think it depends on how they're getting their prescription. If they're getting the branded product and they're on the branded product without insurance is about $1,200 a month. And there are a variety of savings cards available. And under those circumstances, they're spending $550 a month. But those savings cards are limited through a certain period of time. And there's some of the weight loss clinics that are at the lower doses, it's cheaper to go to a compounded pharmacy, and at the higher doses, it's cheaper to get the savings card and get the prescription. So there's even in the non-prescription or non-diabetes category, they're mixing and matching a little bit. And David was telling us you have some spend data on this consumer, is that right?
Yeah, we have some consumer data, but I'll address the first part of your question, which is about the trends on how many people are actually taking these drugs. And I think the estimate is that we're going to get to 24 million in 10 years. And I always like to say that that's more than the state of New York, not the city, the entire state of New York. So, and I think everybody here probably knows somebody on GLP-1 medications at this point, and you know some of the issues they deal with in access and getting and trying to actually get the medication, so they're turning to compounders or getting it through their insurance.
And Jennifer, I understand that you've got sort of focused in on some of the presentations you've done for industry about all of the things that a supplement company might focus in on in terms of indications that kind of hover around GLP-1. Can you tell us those? I mean, I know you have a slide. Unfortunately, we don't have it to put up here, but.
So I think I'm sure there's endless ways that we can support this consumer. As we watch some of our traditional categories go down a little bit, we're very concerned that it's going to have a negative impact on the industry. But I think the opportunity I think all of us believe that the opportunity is tremendous. There's at least 7 ways that we can support the GLP-1 user. And the 3 that we hear the most about are lean muscle mass preservation, blood sugar control, and the GI side effects. But beyond that, there's going to be a tremendous opportunity related to maintenance mode for these patients or customers. a lot of these patients go into their physician and say this: I have X number of dollars, how much money, how much weight can I lose for $1,500? Well, you aren't even on the clinical dose of these products until you've been on the medication for 3 months, because you start at a low dose and you step up as you go. And so we know from the data that there's a tremendous amount of cycling on and off, whether it's side effects that you cycle off, whether it's the finances where you cycle off because you can't afford to stay on every month. And so the maintenance mode, or the in-between mode, I think there's an opportunity for us to help the consumers reinforce their healthy lifestyle. There's also fasting support. If consumers are going to keep the weight off, I really believe that intermittent fasting is going to help reinforce the habits that they develop on these products. And then there's a huge nutrient gap that comes from the fact that we're decreasing our calories so quickly and losing weight so rapidly. There's also, we now talk about Ozempic face and Ozempic behind, because we start to lose some integrity of our skin when we become nutrient deprived, and so there's opportunity there to offset those side effects as well. And I think I'm continue to be in awe of David and Nestle's just quick maneuvering to be able to support this customer. With existing products, I think we're about to have a huge wave of new product development beyond repurposing existing products. That's what's coming next. And if you walk the floor, right, how many times have you seen the words GLP-1 as you walk the floor, or metabolic health? Because everybody's got something for this category right now.
So David, what kind of products did Nestle jump into this trend with?
Well, I think from the very beginning, it's been our strategy that we need to provide solutions that act as companions to the medications. We know they're eating fewer calories, but their nutritional needs stay the same. And so they really need solutions that fit their new calorie targets. So we've been focused on creating products that really deliver nutrition and fewer calories, essentially, whether it's with Nestle Health Science products like our high protein shakes, or high protein meals, or we have a new brand, Vital Pursuit, that focuses on frozen meals, and then we also launched a new website, glp1nutrition.com, that is an easy way for folks to go to a place and see which types of products could benefit them, and there's a range of products including multivitamins, shakes, and even probiotics.
And Susan, with Radical, have you done any studies specifically in recent years connected with Ozempic on weight loss, and what do you think is realistic in terms of products that could really work in this realm?
Yeah, I mean, we were just discussing that. There definitely, I think we can all agree, there's definitely a lack of research, right? Some of the challenges are this kind of happens really quickly, as far as it becoming just a cultural changer, game changer in the space. So there's a lack of research. So to answer your question, we have not. I think there's a definite need, and certainly a definite need to look at large populations and to look at product usages like what Nestle's done, and also to look at what other categories, because everybody is focused on the GLP-1 and the weight loss, but then what's the trickle-down effect, and what are some other categories that are being affected? Like, what is it doing to cognitive health, to sleep, and some of these other supportive categories that we may not be thinking of, because it just sort of seems like it just kind of hit us all at once, right? And so everybody's scrambling to try to figure out, well, what can we do to help offset lean body mass and all these things? And that's super important, but then I think it's going to really have an effect on potentially on every category. And that's where doing large-scale trials and large populations can really help, because you can have multiple outcomes that you can look at in one large study. So we've definitely had some talks, and we've had some clients that have come to us, but we haven't actually completed a trial in that category yet.
So let me play devil's advocate just for a moment. So I'm thinking back to the days when antioxidant values were a big deal, and everybody was quoting ever higher AROC values. And that went on until finally USDA shut that down. So to what degree do you think some of we're talking about, there's GLP-1 on every other booth out here, how much of that is, and also we're talking about a dearth of science, how much of that is providing real value and how much of it is fluff, to be blunt?
Well, I'll put on my consulting hat for a second, and I'll say that in the consulting that I do, having nothing to do with studies and things like that, where we're consulting clients on claims, I definitely am telling people to be very cautious, because to your point, I think that is coming. And I think having the mention of GLP-1s, we've kind of seen this starting already with warning letters and things like that. I think that's coming. And I think that we have to make sure that we're looking at it, and I think Jennifer can speak to this in the work that she's doing with some clients. We're looking at the products that in the dietary supplements space, we have to be very transparent and clear that they're supportive of people on a weight loss journey. I would recommend on a conservative side to my clients that they not use the GLP-1 or any of the words associated with a drug, because it's just a red flag in a search engine search, in my opinion. And Jennifer, I don't know where you stand on that with your clients, but yeah, I know you do some work in that space.
Look, the claim is becoming ubiquitous. It's front panel claim on packaging and things like that, but I think there is a tremendous risk that the FDA at some point will crack down on it, and not just because the FDA is the FDA, but Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly and the people that have developed these drugs, they have their hands full right now, but eventually they're going to be more grumpy about the way we talk about their drugs and their patented formulations. And so I'm not telling people not to put it on their labels right now, but I'm telling them that there's risk that there will be future regulatory activity for sure. Yeah.
So what kind of discussions did you have at Nestle, David, when you started down this journey about what you want to say, what you don't want to say, making sure that you don't overpromise, perhaps?
Well, again, I think that our strategy has been focused on being a companion to the GLP-1 medications. They're here to stay. They're only going to get better, right? There's a great pipeline, right? You've got these medications that are producing 15 to 20% weight loss in a year. That's quite life-changing. So they're here to stay for sure. So how can we help support the GLP-1 medication user? And we know some things about them, and we know where the opportunities are. Like what's the number one issue that GLP-1 medication users have? It's appetite suppression. Appetite suppression, they lose their appetite. That's part of how the drugs work. But it also puts them at risk for malnourishment. They don't get enough protein. They're not meeting their vitamin and mineral targets. So there's a real opportunity there for our industry or our products to support these folks on these medications. Additionally, they're terrified of getting off the medications, right? They discontinue them and then they put their weight back on, and we know that the average user, after they discontinue, they put 2/3 of their weight back on within a year or two, and that's a hard nut to crack. That's a difficult problem to solve, right? So there's some support that we can provide there in terms of maintenance, weight maintenance after weight loss. So that's another issue, and of course we know GI, like you said, the GI issues are also one of the reasons why they get off So if it's either their insurance no longer covers it or they can't afford it anymore, then it's also adverse events is also a reason why they're discontinuing. So there's also roles to play for our products to help with simple adherence to treatment through support of GI issues. But yeah, like Sue was saying, there is more, I agree completely, there's more research to be done. There's little research done in the population. There's a lot of products that we know can support, but very few that are performed on those actually taking the medication. So that's an area of opportunity.
Well, I'll just comment on that, because one of the reasons why the insurance companies don't cover these products is because of the returned weight gain. Because if you got the long-term cardiovascular benefits, we would save so much money by reducing the diseases associated, the risk factors associated with obesity. But the data on the weight gain back is primarily in diabetic subjects who took the drug to lower their A1C and accidentally lost a ton of weight. If you watch the researchers announce the outcome of their conference, because the researchers are always very serious people, and they're very droning on about their data points. They cannot wipe the stupid happy look off their face. And they're like, yeah, we got A1C, but these people lost an amazing amount of weight. It was a surprise even to them. And prior to these weight loss studies, losing 5% of your body weight was enough to reduce your cholesterol, lower your blood pressure. But for the subject, it didn't make you feel that much better. And it's very clinically difficult people's weight naturally swings within that 5% range. And so it's discouraging to be stuck in that, but in that I've lost 5%. And so we can, if you accidentally lose that weight, of course you're not going to keep it off. And one of the things that our industry does really well is we understand how to help people make lifestyle changes. We know how to sell products in the context of, this is a great product, but it's not a magic pill. You got to change your life. And that's an opportunity for us, because I think that weight loss maintenance is going to be better in the studies where they were studied where the purpose of the study was weight loss, because they're getting counseling, because they're identifying, I'm changing my behavior, I'm eating less times per day, less amount of calories. It's why the frozen food is so brilliant, because it's the right amount of calories and also the ease of it. No one loves cooking, spending 2 hours cooking anymore if you're losing your foodie drive. And so the frozen foods that are easy and that are calorie appropriate and meet that new taste paradigm are brilliant for this category. And they're also teaching you about portion control and things like that. So we can, before the pharma companies throw up on us, we should be their best friends, because we can help the results of these drugs stick.
So weight loss has been, for a long time, one of the categories of concern for FDA among dietary supplements. And unfortunately, there's been case after case where these supplements have been found to be contaminated or purposely tainted with sibutramine, old weight loss drug. To what degree do you think, maybe Susan, we could start with you on this, to what degree do you think that maybe played into this trend, like here's a drug that actually works in this way, as opposed to these supplements, which I keep hearing are, being recalled, or FDA says they're, tainted with something that shouldn't be in there?
How much do I think that the tainted
Well, I mean,
drug
that people, viewed Ozempic as a, magic pill, if you will, and it obviously does have demonstrated effects, as opposed to maybe some of the weight loss supplements have been tainted with these, besmirched with these tainting issues?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly think that I wouldn't think there's a huge relationship there. What I think the big thing is the speed at which it happened. We couldn't compete with that. The GLP-1 weight loss happens quickly. It happens more quickly most of the time than just lifestyle changes or any of the supplements that we can create that stay within the supplement category that aren't a drug. And I think at the end of the day, that it's a fast reward. I mean, that's our culture. That's what people want. I'm a registered dietitian. I became an RD, God, I can't believe I'm gonna say this out loud, but 25 years ago. So I've seen a lot of trends, and I've worked with a lot of different people individually. I've worked with groups, and the gradual thing just isn't that exciting and appealing to the person who really wants to lose weight. I really think that that's mostly what it comes down to. It works, and it works fast. I mean, it also it affects people's appetite to the point where it makes it a little bit more user-friendly for them to try to do it. So to me, I think that's more what the drive has been than any sort of like, well, anything anti-supplement or anything about some of the bad players that we've unfortunately had in our industry. But maybe I'm overly optimistic, and I'm not. Maybe my panelists will disagree, but I really feel that's been really more the driving factor than anything.
Well, and also for the weight loss ingredients have been studied in the past, and supplements, let's leave the sibutramine issue aside, they have had very modest effects. Like white bean extract, for instance. I mean, there are some effects, but as you say, I mean, they're connected with a very thoroughgoing lifestyle change, and it was always a case of, this will support somebody's weight loss journey. We can't actually just take this pill and lose weight. Now you can. So when you've been looking at these studies over the years, I mean, what was achievable with dietary supplements before Ozempic came out? Was it like maybe a 2% weight loss, or what were the studies showing?
I mean, you bring up a good point, because I still think it comes down to, and a lot of you have different years of experience and experience with different ingredients than maybe I do, but I would say at the end of the day, most of the ingredients that we've come up with in our space have always been really supportive of overall lifestyle change. I mean, they've been part of it. It's like, yes, they'll give you, like you said, a modest boost or whatever, but at the end of the day, if you're only just gonna take this supplement, no, you have to make the lifestyle changes, and it's not easy, and our culture doesn't support that kind of a thing. So I think that we've had a lot of good products out there. We still, not past tense, we still do, that can help people, but they still have to do the lifestyle changes along with it in order for those to really have their greatest benefit. So yeah, modest changes. We said that's really what we see with lifestyle changes. We see modest, gradual. I mean, we people in this room, we know people, et cetera, who have been able to lose the weight, the 60, 80, 100 plus pounds by lifestyle changes. But it was gradual, and it was subtle at first. And I don't think any supplement alone took the person there, right? Yeah, I mean, it has to be an all-encompassing thing. And I think it still does. And I think once this craze and the scrambling for our industry to see what we're gonna do, we're gonna come back to a similar place where we realize that even if this is a kickstart for somebody, it still has to be part of a journey, and it has to be part of a lifestyle change journey. It just gives you that extra boost that maybe we didn't have before. But I mean, certainly, different
Hank,
perspectives.
You kind of hinted at the naughty part of this category, which is, if you're clinging to the last remnants of what was once our weight management category, I'm telling you to let go, because the category is going to be transformed forever. We're not going back to Hoodia and to fat burners, and I think there's a place for some of those products, but we are moving on to more elegant mechanisms of action. We're gonna quit beating the drum that we've been on for 30 years, and you're gonna have bad players that are going to tell you that they can mimic the GLP-1s Kourtney Kardashian's in trouble right now for her line of supplements. But what we've thought, I think we can have a completely healthy, amazing weight loss category. But what it's been, it's not ever going to be like that again. It's going to keep shifting. It's going to keep changing. You're going to still have bad actors that are trying to take advantage of the situation, but we just need to grow up. We need better ingredients. We need more lifestyle implementation. We need to think about the whole category and how we substantiate our claims and what we're offering to the consumer differently. Think about it differently, or you're just going to get left behind.
So as we enter into this new age, as you're postulating here, Jennifer, what are some of the structure function claims that might arise out of that? So I'm thinking about in the old days, it might be supports a healthy weight loss, or supports healthy weight, supports maintaining a healthy weight. We've all seen warning letters, or those of you who read them, where people who are talking about specific pounds that were lost. That's a big red flag. So anytime you had a weight management ingredient and you tried to communicate an actual verifiable benefit, this seemed to get people into trouble. So what might be a claim that somebody could make on a product, a dietary supplement or food product designed to help this GLP-1 journey that might fly for FDA? Do you have any ideas?
I bet Nestle's had the best legal advice on the planet on this subject.
We have a pretty strong medical affairs team that handles this and makes sure that we're not making any misleading claims. I want to address the point about the modest weight loss, though. Like some of these products that are available that can produce some modest weight loss, 2 to 5%, or I don't think they're off the table, right? Like they can still provide support. I agree that they shouldn't be making any misleading or egregious claims that is not substantiated. But there's still this opportunity of helping to maintain weight after use of medications. That's a strong opportunity there. And if there's a mechanism of action that can help with supporting that goal of, we know appetite control is a big area, because after they get off the drugs, their appetite comes back, the food noise returns. And so that's something that these patients struggle with. They struggle with, as they lose weight, they want to improve body composition. So if there are ingredients that support improvements in body composition, that's certainly something that you should talk to me about. If you have an ingredient that helps with that, I'd be very interested. So I think there's a role to play for supporting the weight loss journey, to improving weight loss, and to helping to maintain. I completely agree with the magic pill comment. I think that's very consistent. We've done a lot of research with dietitians, quantitative research and qualitative, that we've heard that over and over. Like, consumers need to understand it's not a magic pill. They need to make diet lifestyle changes, and they need to gradually adopt better choices, portion control, etc. So any tools that can help with simply helping people ease into long-term diet and lifestyle changes is still a fantastic opportunity for this industry.
At this point, I would like to ask if anybody in the audience have any questions. If you do, raise your hands. If not, I'll continue on. Okay, we've got one question in the back.
Yeah, so I know a couple people have gone off Ozempic, and the very first thing that they're alarmed about is actually their mood changes. They're able to keep their lifestyle the same, but they're not thinking the same. And before that happens, they have the brain fog. But then after they go off, there's they're very testy and all sorts of other problems they have. I don't know where supplements can help with that, but I wonder what you have to say about that.
Well, you raise an excellent point. I think it goes back to what I was thinking of before, is that is another way I think that our industry can support people. And I think that we've all said it, and keep using the word journey. And part of that journey is when they go off of it. We've been talking so much about while people are on the GLP-1s, but like David said, there's so much there to help people after, and mood would be one of those things. It's not just about keeping the weight off. It's not just about making sure that they get enough nutrients, because remember, the fact that they haven't been getting those nutrients, even the macronutrients, is affecting all the systems in their physiology. And so that may be a place where we can really support them both during that and as they come off of the medication. So I'm glad you asked the question particularly about mood. But having worked in the eating disorder field for a long time as a clinician, I worry about the fact that maybe a lot of these patients aren't getting the support while they're on that to help them if they in fact are overweight because they have an eating disorder. Not everybody is, we know that, but if they're not getting the support for that, that's another challenge. Of course, that goes above the discussion here about our industry, but it is a point of concern that I thought of when you asked your question. So thank you for asking that. Yes.
Could I
Oh, yeah, add something, please.
Yeah, for Justin's question about mood. I know there's a little bit to unpack there, because I know there's some suggestions that these medications might cause some mood changes, and I think that in our research we've actually found that they feel very empowered to be on these medications, so they're happy to be on them. At the same time, part of the underlying reasons why some of the weight gains there could also be behavioral. So I think there's an opportunity there where folks getting on these medications should also be considering discussing with a dietitian about behavioral changes as well. But,
yeah, and getting the support they need. Jennifer mentioned that in some of the clinics that we were discussing, and that there are patients that are getting it. It's just you worry that not all of them are, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Abby Smith-Ryan on Monday was speaking about women and when we are fasting, and in a way this is kind of a fasting mimetic. When we are fasting, we tend to lose more of our protein, we tend to lose more of our muscle, and so then in the long term, you're looking at more or increased risk for chronic illnesses. And so how do we address the specific needs of women that are taking GLP-1s?
I'm so glad you asked that question. And that's a good point. And again, I think it comes back to research, and it comes back to looking potentially at diversity and inclusion in the research that is conducted, and making sure we're looking at subpopulations. Yes, women, men, people of different cultural backgrounds and ethnicities and things like this, and how these things affect them and what different kinds of support they may need, even for different cultural diets and things that Nestle can maybe think about in their food offerings and their support, and making sure that we're addressing everybody who's being affected by this. I think it's going to be an important part. And I think, again, it does come back to really well-designed clinical trials, and that if we are going to be making any kind of claims, even about supporting people on their journey, the studies need to be made on that population, and we're not there yet. And so the claims that are being made, we could discuss at length, because they're not being made from research done on people taking these medications. It's not there yet. It's too new. So I'm so glad you raised that question. And so within those studies that are hopefully going to be conducted, we do need to think of the varying populations. Absolutely.
And we're getting all kinds of nasty data out of populations that are losing the weight rapidly, and they're losing such a high percentage of lean muscle mass that when we look at that, their actually percent body fat is going, they're maintaining that or even going up because they're losing so much lean muscle mass. And I think those are really scary data points. It's part of the reservation of the medical community related to these drugs. The other thing is on the questions around mood is that if we look at maybe the 7, 8 mechanisms of action, that these drugs are driving in the body. And if I take tirzepatide over semaglutide because it picks up an extra mechanism, are there things in our natural products arsenal that mimic those mechanisms? Yes, not to the degree. We can't turn them on to the degree that these drugs do. And the one thing that we don't mimic at all, though, is the way that they describe the mental break from food is extraordinary. You can't simulate that. And I had a friend who once said, you know what, if you're struggling with your food choices and you're addicted to sugar and all of that, and if you're an alcoholic, you just don't go to bars. But if you're a foodaholic, it's like you live in a bar. You can't ever escape the scenarios there. And it is the combination of those mechanisms at the degree that we turn them on that is modulating the mental component to this. And when we turn off that, it's influencing mood for sure. When you go back to having an unhealthy relationship with food because the drug drove it and you didn't change your lifestyle, of course it affects mood. Of course it affects our willpower and our perception of ourselves and how successful we are with that. I do some consulting work for one of the world's largest chains of bariatric clinics. They do that surgery. And they had needed nutritional support during special kind of nutritional support for bariatrics. Right now, half of bariatric patients are on the GLP-1s because even under this massive clinical invasive procedure, they still can't make it stick. They still gain the weight back, and that's going to be a dying, archaic kind of a procedure with these drugs. But you can't get that surgery without getting counseling, without getting guidance, without seeing a dietitian, without getting prepped for the experience you're going to have, both having it and then living with it afterwards. And we're probably going to have to do that with GLP-1 patients. You just can't kick them out into the universe and say, good luck to you.
Well, I also worry about how it'll affect older people. We've talked a lot about sarcopenia and muscle loss as you age and how hard that is to offset. Well, now what if an older person is prescribed a GLP-1 and has a significant weight loss, an older woman that has an exasperated lean body mass, and now they're also, older, and the chance of putting that muscle back on is very challenging. So I also wonder, as we progress with learning more about these medications and get past the craze stage of it, maybe we'll look at it differently for different populations. Maybe more gradual dosing will come out. I mean, as our industry playing a supportive role, we definitely need to keep our eye on all these things and think about the different populations and what we can do to those different specific populations to help them and support them as we move forward in this too, especially once the oral medications are more prevalent. Yeah.
Can you hear? Oh. So back to this is James Joseph. Back to your question about clinical trials. For functional foods, GLP-1 population is so big now. If we have to do the kind of clinical trial with mass population, then even food will become as expensive as the drug. So is there a low bar for functional food when it comes to clinical trial? What bigger sample size do we need?
So I'm not sure of the question. It's hard to hear.
How big the sample size should be for a clinical trial?
Sample size.
Yeah.
Sample size. Well, that's a good question. I think we'd have to look at exactly what our outcomes would be, right? We'd have to do a power analysis. I mean, it's hard to answer. I mean, you can certainly do large trials. Large trials aren't the answer for everything. I mean, I know radical science, but they're not the answer for everything. We have to look at exactly what your endpoints would be, what are your goals for the trial, and we have to, what effect size do we want to look at, and then we do a power analysis to determine that. So it kind of depends on what you'd be looking to accomplish with your functional food, and then we can figure it out. But certainly, it is with larger trials, it's easier to look at subpopulations, and we can power to those subpopulations so that we can look at older people, women, et cetera, and we can incorporate that into our study design. So it really comes down to your goals, your research goals, your endpoints, and then your study design needs to reflect that. And that's how we would determine exactly which, what our size would be for that. Yeah.
And I think that's a really fair comment on how those studies need to get designed. But before we get into the really well-designed studies that cover all the necessary populations, I hope that this group, we're going to have a proliferation of proof of concept and pilot studies. Just start to get our heads around what we would expect to see in the clinical literature. We're not Abbott, we're not Eli Lilly, and even their studies are only 100. Some of their studies are in the 100-person range, and they don't do a good job of looking at all of diversity in their populations. We still have experts expecting that because so many people are taking these drugs, we're actually running a giant clinical trial now. We're going to find out what the real side effects are in subsegment populations by the fact that they're so ubiquitous right now. But the first step is proof of concept. The first step is pilot work. And for food and functional foods, you're really talking about nutritional gaps. And we know a lot about nutritional gaps. We know a lot about how to solve that. And there's the pilot work and the data that exists today that is a bridge to get us to the bigger clinical trials that she's talking about, for sure.
So do you think that might be an opportunity for practitioner brand channels, practitioner brands to talk specifically about those nutrient gaps?
Always. I think that's healthy to have that expertise that the practitioner brands have. They have an opportunity to educate. That's their model, right? To educate. They also have a higher price point a lot because the education allows the consumer to understand why they have to pay more for their products. And so I think this is a strong category for practitioners.
So we have time for one more brief question, so you two will have to...
Hi. We've spent the bulk of the conversation talking about the use case in overweight or obese individuals, but the other off-label use case I've been hearing more about is...
Can you hold it up close to your mouth, please?
Fitness athletes or combat athletes using these drugs to support a cut or to come off a cut so they don't rebound as much. Does that present a separate set of opportunities for the sport nutrition category?
For combat athletes to support, I couldn't hear the rest of it.
That's so crazy.
Is the question about using the medications
Yeah.
with
So
athletes?
what I've been hearing is a lot of high-level bodybuilders, fitness athletes, combat sport athletes are using these drugs either to support their cut so it's easier to cut, or when they come off of that cut, they don't want to rebound back as much. So on top of their stack of everything else, they're adding these in. So on the supplement side, does this add a separate set of opportunities in the sports nutrition category?
In my opinion, sports nutrition being a category of expertise for that wouldn't be something that I would recommend that an athlete do. I don't know how you'd possibly get the nutrients that you would need to fuel the training or the recovery. So I think it wouldn't be a road I'd want to recommend anybody go down, either from an individual sport or that a company support that, because I think it would be counterindicated for that population, especially if the person wasn't overweight and they were using it for off-label purposes.
So I think that's as much time as we have. I want to thank everybody for coming. Obviously this had a great deal of interest. Before you leave, I want to just tell you, if you want to stick around for a bit, you've got a seat for the best show in the house. No offense to my panel right here, but that would be the man who has turned digestive health issues into into a comedy trope. That would be the probiotic comic. Ivan Wasserman is going to be here in just a few minutes. So if you want to stick around, it's like I said, it's a wonderful way to wrap up the show. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good questions.